Most people lose respect not because they are weak, but because they explain too much. They defend themselves when no explanation was asked for. They justify their choices to people who have no authority over their lives. And the moment you start explaining yourself unnecessarily, something subtle but powerful breaks. Your authority. Your presence. Your calm. Today, we are going to talk about a Stoic rule that instantly changes how people see you. Never explain yourself. Not out of arrogance. Not out of anger. But out of deep inner control. If you've ever felt drained after conversations, misunderstood, or secretly disrespected, stay with me, because this lesson can quietly change how the world responds to you. Welcome to Stoic Code, where we turn ancient wisdom into modern strength. And before we go deeper, if this kind of calm power, silence, and self-mastery speaks to you, take a second to like this video and subscribe to Stoic Code. It helps this message reach people who need it, and it keeps you connected to ideas that make you unshakable. Let's begin with something uncomfortable but true. The more you explain yourself, the less powerful you appear. Think about it. Powerful people don't rush to clarify. They don't panic when misunderstood. They don't overtalk to be accepted. They speak when needed, and they stop when their message is complete. Silence does the rest. In Stoic philosophy, this is not about being cold. It's about knowing that your worth does not require constant validation. Imagine a lion in the wild. It does not explain why it walks where it walks. It does not justify its strength. It does not argue with smaller animals about its role. Its presence speaks first. Humans are no different. The moment you start explaining your decisions to everyone, you teach people that your choices are negotiable. Most people explain themselves because they fear rejection. They fear being judged. They fear losing connection. But Stoicism teaches something radical. You are responsible for your actions, not for how others interpret them. Marcus Aurelius wrote that we suffer more in imagination than in reality. Over-explaining is imagination at work. Imagining disapproval before it even happens. Let me tell you a simple story. There is always one person in the office who calmly does their work, speaks less, and never rushes to defend themselves. When criticism comes, they listen. When rumors appear, they remain steady. And strangely, people trust them more. Not because they are louder, but because they are grounded. Silence creates gravity. Now let's be clear. Never explaining yourself does not mean never communicating. It means choosing when explanation is necessary and when it is weakness disguised as politeness. If someone genuinely deserves clarity, you give it once, calmly, without emotion. But if someone is probing, testing, or trying to pull you into justification loops, silence is the answer. Toxic people thrive on explanations. They ask questions not to understand, but to control. Every answer you give becomes a handle they can pull. Stoics understood this centuries ago. Epictetus warned that when you explain yourself to fools, you give them power over your peace. Think about how many times you've replayed conversations in your head. I should have said this. I should have explained that better. But here's the truth. If someone already decided to misunderstand you, no explanation will change their mind. Silence preserves your energy. Explanation drains it. Authority is quiet. Insecure people talk the most. This is one of the hardest truths to accept, because modern culture rewards constant sharing. Oversharing. Defending. Reacting. Stoicism moves in the opposite direction. It asks you to pause. To observe. To respond only when your response adds value. When you stop explaining yourself, something interesting happens. People lean in. They start listening more carefully. They question themselves instead of you. Silence creates space, and in that space, your presence expands. There's a reason judges speak briefly. Leaders pause before answering. Experienced individuals don't rush. It's not because they have nothing to say. It's because they understand timing. Stoic silence is not emptiness. It is restraint. Let's talk about relationships. Over-explaining in relationships often comes from fear of abandonment. You want to be understood so badly that you give long speeches. But respect is not built through constant explanation. It is built through consistency and boundaries. When your actions align with your values, explanation becomes unnecessary. If someone questions your boundaries, you don't need a long defense. A calm "this is what works for me" is enough. And if that's not respected, silence becomes the boundary. Stoics believe that self-control is the highest form of power. Not controlling others. Controlling yourself. Your words. Your reactions. Your need to be seen as right. Every time you resist explaining yourself, you strengthen that muscle. There will be moments when silence feels uncomfortable. When your ego screams to speak. When your heart wants to correct the narrative. But ask yourself this question. Will explaining this bring me peace, or just temporary relief? Most of the time, it's the second. Silence also reveals character. Yours and theirs. Those who respect you will respect your quiet. Those who don't will become louder. And that contrast tells you everything you need to know. In Stoic code, we talk a lot about emotional control, and this is one of its sharpest tools. When someone provokes you, they want a reaction. Explanation is a reaction. Silence is mastery. This doesn't mean being passive. It means being deliberate. You are not avoiding conflict. You are choosing dignity over drama. Over time, people will label you differently. Calm. Mysterious. Strong. Not because you tried to appear that way, but because you stopped leaking energy through unnecessary words. As this lesson sinks in, notice how often you explain yourself out of habit. Not because it's needed, but because it feels safe. Let that habit fade. Replace it with stillness. Near the end of this video, I want you to reflect on something. The most respected people you know. Do they explain themselves often? Or do they let their actions speak? If this message resonates, share it with someone who needs to reclaim their authority. And tell me in the comments, have you noticed how silence changes how people treat you? Your experiences help others learn, and they help this channel grow. Stoicism isn't about isolation. It's about clarity. And when you stop explaining yourself, your life becomes quieter, stronger, and more intentional. Stay calm. Stay grounded. And remember, true authority never begs to be understood. This is Stoic Code.